Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show with your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino. How be you?
Oh, it is, it's cold.
It is cold.
We had our first little blast, and I'm ready for summer.
Oh, me too. I've been ready for summer, but that was the icing on the cake. That was the ice on the cake.
There you go.
That was the ice on the cake. Oh, my God.
Well, speaking of icing on the cake, I always like segues. We got to thank all of our listeners.
Thank you, listeners. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. No, we as always, the comments. When you go out on our forums page on our website, ampsandaxescast.com,
right,
and you want to send us a comment, make sure you put an email address where it says what's your email address, and make it legit, because we can actually reply to you.
Yeah, we've had some
that they don't put anything.
Right, some comments and or questions,
and we'd have no idea where it goes.
Sorry, people, I can't get back to you.
Yeah, we would. And some of this, there's questions that a lot of times go to Jeff, and they're in depth, and we don't, we would love to answer that on the air, but that would take considerable time.
It would. I mean, you know what? I will look at a couple, and maybe we'll select one and give it a quick answer at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
So I'll do that. But yeah, it helps if you put your email address in. This way, when I have a minute or.
And we don't spam.
30.
We don't. We don't do any of that crap.
No.
And thank you for clicking through the Amazon banner on our front page.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That doesn't cost you anything extra. You get your product. We get a little kickback. It keeps the lights on. Keeps this hard drive spinning.
That's right.
Actually, there's no hard drive. It's solid state.
Solid state.
And
don't lie to the people now.
I'm not.
Don't lie.
Well, there's a hard drive over here. I have
okay.
two.
All right. There you go. It's two computers.
Yeah. So they have one spinning. Actually. Funny thing is, both of them have solid state drives. This one actually has two hard drives. So this one actually has a mechanical drive.
Right, and a solid state.
And that's enough of that.
And that's too technical for me already.
That's my day, so I don't need to talk about it anymore.
Does it have any tubes in it?
No tubes.
No tubes?
No.
It's I can't help you there.
It has a light bar. That's LCD. This is LED. So the LCD would have a light bar.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's backlit.
It's not a tube. I don't care.
Yeah, well, also, thank you for donating through the PayPal button on the page, and thanks for the comments. We've gotten some comments out on iTunes. Got a little 5-star rating.
Awesome.
That is really good stuff. The more you can do that, the better it helps the show advance to the top.
Right. The more you can do that, the more it helps us bring it to a larger audience.
Yes.
And that helps everybody.
And the thing is that if you really look around on the internet and you look at in the podcast world, we're kind of the only gig that does what we do. There's another show, and I mean, I can name them. It's called Flow Guitar Enthusiast. And they're sponsored by Sweetwater. I think they're actually in correlation with an actual radio station.
Okay.
A lot of podcasts, they do that. They take a radio station show and they hack it up and they make it a podcast. And it's cheaper than syndicating it across the country or trying to replay it on their end.
Right.
So I think it may be something like that. They are, as far as us and them, we're apples and oranges. Their interviews are different than ours. They're not bad, but ours are more in depth. They get more personal with the artists or the manufacturer.
Which is what I try to do.
Exactly.
I think people find that interesting. They just don't want a bunch of facts and the latest this and it's. I don't want it to be simply a sales pitch for anything. You know, whether it's a product, whether it's a CD, whether it's a tour, or what, you know, I want the listeners to get more out of it than that, you know?
Yeah. And we will have some advertising, from different things.
Oh, yeah.
As time goes on. But that'll be the advertising piece, and those spots will be read live, and it'll just be one of those things.
Right.
But as far as, like, our interviews, like you said, when we have, like, a hip shot or one of those guys, you know, the guys from Graph Tech, if you listen to those shows, we weren't sitting there just... so what's this? What's
right.
It was.
We weren't
it was,
just talking product and specs. You know, we were.
No, it was how did they make it
into the history of it. You know,
yeah, exactly.
and the person behind it. So that's. I think it's very informative, and I don't think a lot of people do that, and I think a lot of people really find that interesting and at times entertaining.
Yeah, and the other thing is make sure you follow us on Twitter at Amps and Axes, at Amps and Axes. Oh, I never remember half this stuff. And then Instagram, which is amps_axes. And
hit us up all over the place.
And then on Facebook, you can follow us there too, and that's just Amps and Axes.
Correct.
If I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
Yeah, you can find us if you go to Jeff's page or my page. You will find us there.
Look around, you'll find us.
Yeah, I am actually visible now. For a while there, I was invisible to the internet.
Incognito.
And I keep getting all these friend requests, and I'm like, I really don't want that part because I've got enough with the Twitter and Instagram.
Right.
I did it so that way if anybody was
trying to find
either one of us, they'll find us. Right. So anyway,
I'm never hard to find, and me and East Amps were not hard to find this past weekend. We had a
it says do not do, what did it say? No drinks.
Oh, no.
One of the amps here has a big green label and it says no drinks.
No drinks.
That was Matt Jones's. No, I'm just kidding.
I forgot about that. That's true.
Matt Jones is actually his East likes vodka and orange juice.
That's right.
Yes, it's
liked
thirsty.
it a lot. Yeah, liked it a lot. Anyway, there was a local benefit in Baltimore for an Annapolis guy from the industry, Jeff Kaplan, who unfortunately was killed in a automobile accident about a month or so ago. Oh. And they had a very nice benefit at Ram's Head Live in downtown Baltimore. Really, really nice venue, big venue, great turnout, and lots of the Baltimore Annapolis bands turned out to support him. And it was a really great evening. And my friend Chris Keith called me up and he said, "Would you be so kind as to do backline, for the show?" I went, "Sure, no problem." So I took a few rigs out there and did the back line. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is there was a cover / kind of tribute band there called Bastards of Reality.
I like that.
Yeah, and they of course that would be a
Black Sabbath.
A Sabbath cover band. And then halfway into it, they turned into their alter ego, which is Nightstalker, which is an AC/DC cover band.
That's pretty wild. 4 guys or 5? I apologize.
5.
Okay.
5.
Okay.
Yeah, 5. The only reason I bring this up is that I play rock with my amps, and and guys play blues with them, and people like Shay and everybody, they play kind of jazz, with them, jazz / fusion-y kind of stuff.
Well, from my side, this is not a metal amp.
No, it's not a metal amp. That's the one thing that I don't do. I don't do metal amps.
No, but it does extremely
really
well.
Well,
yes.
what it did extremely well that day was I had never heard my amps do Black Sabbath or AC/DC.
Yeah.
I'm standing there with everybody who's just as ridiculously as impressed as I am. It's like, these guys just sound absolutely amazing. And it was nothing but guitar into amp, done.
How'd they do the Black Sabbath thing? That's a lot of distortion.
You know what? They were pulling it off really well. It wasn't a perfect Iommi tone.
Yeah, but
because that's a little bit harder edged.
Yeah.
But it was Mick, I got to tell you, man, it was the first time I had heard those amps do Black Sabbath and AC/DC,
Wow.
and it was ridiculous. It's like, wow, something else that they do really well. So, and I don't want this to sound like a commercial. I just brought it up because
we just talked about that.
Right. I was just
well, that's okay. Though.
I was just impressed. And there were other people
cool.
standing there going, wow, they just sound amazing.
Now let's get into it a little bit. Did you get to see any of the way they had it turned? Did you see any of that? Like when they did AC/DC, were they cranking the masters to no end to get that power tube, and what were they using?
The amps were loud. I tell you what, the main guitar behind the Sabbath and the AC/DC guitarist was playing. Actually, I think it would be an SG or something. He actually had a Les Paul, really good sounding Les Paul. And honestly, I think he had Duncan Antiquities in it,
which are very microphonic if you're not careful because they're not potted.
And at times they were, but I think they.
I'm lying to you.
No, you're not, because he said they're not potted and they will squeal.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure it was the Antiquities.
I was thinking of Seth Lovers.
The Lovers probably aren't potted.
Yeah, they aren't
either.
potted.
No, but these were really good.
Okay.
Great sounding Les Paul.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was playing the Theater 30. Okay. And I mean, everybody had a really decent stage volume as far as moving a little air.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very good. So the master was kind of up, but there was enough front end gain to pull off the Iommi and just dial it back a little bit for the AC/DC. So I was really impressed.
That's
it was
cool.
Crazy. But yeah. So that was that. Oh, one more thing before we get into our guest. I was playing around with a guitar the other day, and I don't know why. I mean, it tuned fine. The intonation seemed to be fine. I just couldn't get this thing to play in tune for me. There were certain chords and certain places on the neck where I thought it was me. It's like, what's wrong with me today? I can't play.
Now, well, I mean, and this is a guitar you use from time to time.
Yeah, from time to time.
And it's never had this issue.
Well, I hadn't played it enough to really know, because I got a couple that
yeah,
I'm just warming back up to,
Well,
and
it could be maybe the guitar needs to be set up.
Well, I'll tell you what, and this is why it's surprising. And some people may know this, and some people may know this affects things, but not in this particular way. And I just found out that it affects things in this particular way because I found out what the problem was.
Oh,
pickups were too close to the strings.
Magnetic pull.
Yeah. Now I know that can deaden the sustain in a guitar.
So it can pull down now.
This thing was not playing in tune for me. Certain things were just not right. I dropped the pickups a little bit. Actually, I dropped the bridge one and brought up the neck one just to kind of be relatively even with it.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, there's your tip, people. And I just found this out. So,
Lower your pickups.
Lower your pickups a little bit,
Well, it is a magnet.
Right.
And if you ever take a screwdriver, it's a humbucker, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you ever take a screwdriver and you wander it across the top of your humbucker pickup, it is like ka-tunk. It doesn't mildly pull it out of your hand. It's not like this weak thing. It will actually...
It goes chunk.
Well, if the pickup wasn't mounted, you could pick it up with the screwdriver.
Oh, yeah.
From the sheer magnetic force
of
itself. So that little tiny string isn't really going to do a whole lot.
Yeah, and I'm sure most people know that it will affect the sustain if it's too close because it really does stop the string. It slows the string down from resonating.
Well, there's a magnetic field.
Right.
Yeah. So,
right. So most people know that, but, if the thing is just not right for you and the pickups are a little bit higher than maybe they should
try that first.
Yeah, try that first. Drop the pickups some, man.
Yeah.
I was completely surprised. I'm really happy with it now. So
sort of like that picture I just showed you.
Right.
Which was the most bizarre thing. There's a picture on
the stop action strings vibrating.
On our Google Plus, and it was like, this is what your string looks like at full vibration. And that is the most bizarre photo I've ever seen. It doesn't even look like it would play. I mean, it literally looked like these little tiny waves that the string
fun with physics.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, all that stop action stuff now with, you get a GoPro, and now they can go down to like, I forget how many, well, not GoPros, I'm sorry, but they have cameras now that go down to like, 40,000 frames a second or something.
Oh,
crazy.
yeah, it's something crazy. The slow-mo you can get out of the technology nowadays is insane.
If you go to YouTube, check out the slow-mo guys.
Oh, really?
They have a channel,
and
all these kids do, I think they're English, is they just blow stuff up. And then they record it with this camera. And they did the rubber band and the watermelon. You ever seen that?
No.
Okay. So they take a watermelon. I won't diatribe on this, but they take a watermelon. They take a bunch of those big, heavy rubber bands, and they start putting them around the middle of it. And as they keep putting more and more on, now they're just putting one, just snapping them on. It explodes.
Wow.
It just pulls the center in, and the watermelon just lets go. Now, the cool part is in fast motion, you just get this watermelon. It looks like it detonates. Right. And the top flops up, and everything. In slow motion, it is the craziest looking thing you've ever seen.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, because the rubber bands go back to their normal shape because they literally just saw right through this thing. So that's what's happening. They're sawing through it, and it looks like it's letting go. It's not. It's just squeezing it to death. It's pretty wild.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
I think a bunch of rubber bands could do that, but hey, they're having fun and blowing stuff up.
Well, remember your parents always used to tell you not to put them around your wrist. Your hand will fall off.
Eventually,
you'll cut the circulation off.
That's right. Smurf hands.
How are we alive?
You have Smurf
hands. Now there's like 12 airbags. There's all kinds of stuff.
And you can't have Smurf hands to play guitar. It doesn't work.
My seatbelt as a kid was my dad's arm and that unyielding dash in that 66 Chevelle.
Oh, yeah.
It was padded with a metal underneath. It was.
You're going to hit one of them first, either his arm or your head's going to hit the dash. But
yeah.
Hey, we live.
Good times.
Good times. Good times.
All right,
well,
so
cool.
we got somebody coming up.
Yeah, we do. Wow, go figure. It's guitar oriented, but
the name kind of says something.
It does. Well,
it's kind of funny because when you tell a lame person this, just a regular person, lay person.
Lay, not lame.
Not lame. Well, they could be lame.
That's true.
Okay.
That's a whole nother thing.
When you tell somebody, they go, I understand the amps part, but the axes piece? And I'm like, well, it's amps and serial killers.
Okay, then.
Yeah, no. So the guitar part, yes.
I just learned something. I didn't know that. So the guitar part, yeah, we have someone on today who is a very integral part of what is turning out to be a really successful and innovative guitar manufacturer.
I would love to know how many people that are listening to the show know about this guitar company.
Well, hopefully more will after the podcast.
No, I mean pre. You know what I mean?
Like pre, yeah,
just
okay.
know who they are.
Okay.
Because it's really funny. I hear a lot of guys talk about them.
Well, good.
Yeah.
That's good. And
it's a great thing.
And our guest is responsible, I would assume responsible for a lot of that talk because he's not the man behind the guitar, he's the man behind the business though. So
that man sometimes is really important.
He's very important. He's a very important man, been around for a long time, and this is not his first rodeo. So when we come back from Knaggs Guitars, Mr. Peter Wolf.
Hey everybody, it's Carl Verheyen from the Carl Verheyen Band and from Supertramp, and you're listening to Amps and Axes.
Okay, and we're back. And without further ado, our guest for the week, Mr. Peter Wolf. Peter, how are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Very good. Thanks for taking the time. I know you guys are busy because it's so busy today that we were supposed to have Joe Knaggs with you, and things just got so busy he couldn't even do it. So I'm glad things are that busy for you.
Yeah, it's been pretty intense the last 6-8 weeks before NAMM, and then NAMM was really good for us, and got a ton of orders, a lot of guitars we're making for artists, so some of which we are trying to get out this week, so it's been a little hectic lately.
And that's okay. That's a very, very good thing.
Yeah.
I've had a similar week, but let's before we get into the product itself, let's go back a little bit into Peter Wolf and kind of like where you came from, where you started, and what put you where you are now.
All right. Yep. Well, it started a long, long time ago, back in the late 70s in Germany. Two friends of mine from school had started a music store called Pro Sound Music Center in Koblenz, which is a city between Frankfurt and Cologne on the River Rhine, where the two rivers, Rhine and Moselle, get together.
Nice.
And I had just finished business school and I was drafted into the German army, so I had to do 18 months of service. But while I was in the army, we were already talking about me joining the company once I was released, which more or less happened pretty soon after. So, we started a very small music store, about 1,500 square feet. And before you knew it, we were like doing $5 million sales a year, and
wow,
had customers from all over Europe coming. And that was the time when I started to source out and find, small U.S. manufacturers. It was mainly U.S. We were dealing a lot with England too, but it was somehow mainly companies from the U.S. that I got involved with. There was a number of brands that I helped to break in Europe. I was doing Hamer for 12 years, Hamer Guitars. Still good friends with all of them, and that's also how I met Steve Stevens in 1984 when he was having his Hamer signature models.
Yeah, he was a Hamer guy back then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would connect with these companies and bring them over to Europe and kind of introduce them to the European markets and start branding and marketing them before anybody even knew what branding was. So that's kind of how I got into it. And as we were growing, I added other brands to the portfolio. Rocktron was one of them, Groove Tubes, Lackland basses. Then in '86, PRS started. I became, I think, their first international distributor in Europe. And I was doing PRS in Germany, Luxembourg, Austria, and Switzerland until 1990, when I started a wholesale distribution company called PRS Guitars Germany.
Huh.
And I did that for 7 years, and that's when it really started to blow up, and with PRS especially. And then, at some point, Paul and I started talking about me directly working for them, which then happened in, I think, July 1997. I started as an international sales manager for PRS and, started to add countries. I think it was 13 when I began, and when I left it was like 98 or something like that. So I did that for 6 years, going back and forth and traveling around the world and preaching the gospel until 2003, when I moved to Maryland and started to work at the office every day and was made director of global sales and marketing, which is the position I held until I left in February 2009.
Wow. Now, going back a little bit, when you were sourcing all these mostly American companies to represent over there, I mean, there was, the communication wasn't like it is today, with internet and websites and everything. How were you finding these companies? Were you actually coming over to the U.S. and sourcing things out, or were you just through print magazines and things like that?
A little bit of both. I was in the U.S. on a regular basis. I attended the NAMM show, the winter show in Los Angeles. I've been attending since '83. I went to many different summer shows. They used to be in Chicago, they used to be in New Orleans, they used to be in Nashville, all over the place. So yes, that's like mainly shows is when I would like meet people personally, or you would use the good old fax or even the good old telephone.
For sure.
To connect with people and, introduce yourself, and that's kind of how it all happened.
Some people don't realize that communication never used to be like this, and there was some diligence and hard work that went into and travel that went into trying to connect people and or businesses and things.
Yeah.
So
it was like the other day I was telling you that story about when I tried to get a hold of Alex Saraceno, Blue Saraceno's dad.
Right.
This was before any of the internet or anything. I mean, I
used a good old telephone.
And I was talking to I ended up talking to Dweezil Zappa's sister, who had their phone number because she lived down there. I'm like, how did I end up here?
Right.
But that's what you had to do back then.
It's amazing how things got done back then. I look back and I go, how the hell did I even know about this or get this done? It's staggering.
Well, we got to go home at 5 o'clock in the afternoon too.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So you left PRS when?
I think it was actually today, February 18th, 2009.
Ah.
So it's exactly been 6 years.
6 years today.
I remember it that vividly because February 18th is Paul Smith's birthday. So happy birthday, Paul!
Happy birthday, Paul! Yeah.
So that's why I'm so sure about the date. Yeah, that's the day I walked out of my little box, and that was it.
Wow!
Happy birthday! Here's my resignation.
Yeah. Wow! And was that before or prior to Joe leaving?
No. Joe left at the end of June 2009. And there's probably a bunch of people out there who think that, we had all this planned out. Well, the reality and truth is we have talked about it, yes, but we hadn't really planned anything out. When I left Joe, and I didn't really speak much for the next 3 or 4 months because, we respected each other and liked each other too much to wanting to have, his decision being impacted by mine or vice versa. So I think we spoke 2 or 3 times between my leaving PRS and his leaving. But it was all about how the kids, how's the family, what are you doing, how are things, talk to you later. So once he had made his decision at the end of June and basically resigned and told them he was going to leave, obviously that's when we started to talk and, pretty much on a daily basis. We also went on vacation together down in the Carolinas for a week and really started to suss out what we were going to do. And then, then the design phase started and, the company was founded, I think, officially in October 2009.
Nice. And that's very honorable and respectable that you didn't want your decision to affect his. And
look, I mean, he was. I think they even offered him a vice president's position at the end. I didn't want Joe's future and his family's future to be impacted by what was going on between me and them. And, we talked very openly about that, and we both felt that it was the right way of handling it, and that's what we did. And then obviously when he had made his decision, we pretty immediately started to make plans.
Yeah, obviously very good ones because the stuff you guys are doing now is really nice.
Just crazy.
Beautiful, top notch. And
Thank you.
I guess it's Joe is following his dream,
Well, as I think he used the term the first time, but I've used it many times, since. Essentially, at some point, he wanted to sign his own paintings, if you want to call it that. Most people know that he's pretty much designed everything that came out of PRS since '93. Models, neck joints, inlays, private stock program, invented double stain finish process, and just so many different things that he was directly, ultimately responsible for. So when you are that talented and gifted, and somebody else writes his name on the headstock all the time, I can truly understand how that feels. Like, imagine you write a song and somebody else gets the credit.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, he's obviously a very talented guy, because the quality and the design of the new products now is just, it's beautiful. It's second to none, and they're just awesome pieces of art. Now
I have a question, because from what you were saying about this timeline, this company was like, you were there at the day of its inception, because he hadn't even designed anything at that time. What was he doing? Was he just doing guitar repair when he left?
No. It was it was a little different. There already were two designs. The Chop Tank and the Severn models had already been designed while Joe was still at PRS. I think the Chop Tank was designed in 2000 or 2001.
Okay.
And the Severn was designed a little later. The original idea that we had in mind was, we kind of wanted to bring 6 on the side headstocks into the PRS world. I basically said to Paul, look, we've got these great designs here, and we don't have anything with 6 on the side headstocks. We don't really cater to the Fender world. We don't have anything with a Fender scale, neither. And why don't we introduce a new line of guitars, and let's call them Chesapeake or whatever you want to call them, and start taking some of that market share, and help or satisfy players that have been asking us that for years, but we don't really have anything to give to them. But and I tried everything possible,
Sure.
But Paul didn't really want to do that. And for whatever reason, which I can respect, but ultimately when we left, we took all the Chesapeake designs and trademarks with us.
Wow.
And then in a time frame of maybe 4 to 6 weeks, Joe and I designed the entire Influence line models, which is the Kenai, the Kia, the Chenna, and the Cheyenne. When I say we, it was mainly him and me watching him, but we talked a lot. There was a line here and there that I thought should be different, and he's just an amazing designer and drawer. I mean, I'm good at drawing some stuff, but I'm not very good at drawing guitars. And when it comes to guitars, especially if you want to create what I call classic shapes. That are your own, though, without copying anybody. You really need somebody who knows what they're doing, and Joe is he's the best I've ever worked with, and he's the best. He's one of the best out there. There's no question.
Wow. So you have these designs on paper. How did you go about executing the first prototypes, and where did he have a shop or?
Yeah, Joe had a little shop at his house, a little studio, and that's where we made the first, I think, 9 guitars. It was a Severn, a Chop Tank, a Cheyenne, a Chenna, a Kia, a Kenai, and 2 basses. And we took those 9 instruments. They all happened between, I would say, early January 2010 and end of March 2010. They were basically completely hand-built. And then we took those 9 guitars to Frankfurt in April 2010 and introduced them there at the Frankfurt trade show.
Wow. That's a lot of work in that time frame to try to get all these prototypes done. That's incredible.
Yeah, Danny Dido, who's been with Joe in the, PRS private stock and R&D team, Danny has been working with Joe for, I think, 23 or 24 years.
Wow.
He also left at the end of 2009 and joined us, and he helped Joe basically get get all the guitars built and done for Frankfurt. And then after we found the shop on the Eastern Shore in May 2010, he was very instrumental in getting all these designs 3D digitized and computer programmed, so we could start using CNCs.
Okay. I was going to say that tool up, getting everything together and the machinery and
you really have to have somebody that's intimately familiar with doing that as well in the guitar world.
And that isn't a quick process,
No, it's not, and it's not just writing the programs. What you really need is jigs and fixtures that are incredibly expensive. But we didn't really have any money, in the beginning, and it was like pulling teeth. And Danny is just so good in making jigs and fixtures out of nothing.
Oh, wow.
Using tape, and it's amazing what he does and has done. And so we were able to get 7 or 8 different shapes. Think about that.
That's crazy.
I don't know of any guitar company ever
who
has come out with 9 different designs.
No, straight out of the gate.
Not at all.
No, that's
no. And
1 or 2, sure.
And the thing is a lot of people don't understand, because one time, I did a little building of my own.
Sure.
I wanted to go away from a wood template, and I wanted to have an aluminum template made.
Right.
So I contacted a company that would do it. They had a CNC. It was, like you said, the jigs and the fixtures, very expensive.
Yes.
They wanted hundreds of dollars for this piece of aluminum, and I was like,
"Oh, sure."
It's just I was trying to do this
spend
math.
hundreds of dollars in paying their programmer to program the CNC machine to cut your template.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's actually more like thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
and especially for what he's talking about, because with the bodies, when you do the back, the top is arched, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So that fixture has to mimic that arch to get the vacuum seal, so they can route the back. And if not, they have to do it by hand.
Yes, and there's a lot more to it, because we have our guitars, especially the influence line, the Chesapeake line, the 7 and the Sharp Tank are they have contoured backs, but they sort of have flat or beveled tops.
Sure.
But the influence line, like the Jenna or the Kenai, they are incredibly concave. They have different thicknesses at different parts of the body, and
wow,
to get that programmed is so intense. And once you have that, you can start using a CNC, but I would say 70 to 80% is still hand routing and hand touching.
Sure.
So the CNC helps a lot, but only if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then if you can finish what the CNC can finish.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where the artistry comes in.
And when you see, and either way, if you were doing it by hand with a duplicarver, right, where you have one good body and then you have your blank and then you're taking your cart, it's basically like a stencil follower, right? Or if a CNC does it, it's not going to be the finished carve on the top, because the bit is rounded at the bottom. So as it makes its passes, it'll have these little like coves, I guess, and they have to be sanded down smooth, and it has to blend in the transitions and all. So there's, just because it was done on there, once you take it off, there's a lot more that has to be done. And it's painstaking. After you've sanded for, I don't know, what seems like forever, then somebody will come behind you and go, "You missed it here, you missed it here, you missed it."
Well, the good thing is we have very, very experienced people working with us.
Yeah. That's good.
First of all, everyone is ex-PRS, which is kind of interesting. On the other side, it's a pleasure to have them. Some of them were let go for whatever reasons, and we like having them. They're good kids. They know what they're doing, and so there's a very high level of professionalism in all different cool. areas of the shop. which helps incredibly to to get the numbers.
Yeah, that's
a small team that we're doing.
Right, and it's a shorter learning curve because these people are experienced. And that's fantastic.
And if you think about this, right, if they leave PRS, you have to move to go work at another guitar place. If you want to continue that, or you can, or the guys at Knaggs, if they accept you, then you don't have to go so far.
Right, you're still on the same side of the bridge.
Yeah.
There aren't that many guitar makers.
And
in our area.
No. I just had the opportunity to check out the guitar that you just made for Jimmy Davies, Jimmy Haha. Mm-hmm. Just crazy good piece. I mean, single neck pickup.
Yeah, that's what he wanted. He wanted the Chenna with just a single neck pickup. He likes guitars with just a neck pickup. And
wow.
He didn't want any tone controls, so it's just got a volume knob and that's it.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's. I mean, that's been
his beautiful guitar. I played it the other day at his house because I had not seen it when it was completed. Lucas Franzoli brought it over from the shop, and when I finally saw it, I played it for like half an hour. It's a great guitar, amazing guitar.
So Lucas is working for you too. Now I know Lucas.
Yeah. Yep, Lucas is working for us. It's Nick Ralph, it's Jason, it's John Sloan, it's Joe, it's Danny, it's Dean Nitch, it's Dave Hazel, also a member of the original Private Stock team, together with Joe and Danny, and then did I forget anybody? John Ingram.
Oh wow!
Who was the original partner Paul started with back in '80.
Borky. Yeah.
Okay, yep.
Wow. That's I didn't know your team was that large, man. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
that's
I think we're 10 or 11 now.
That's really, really nice. And in an old base mall factory, I believe.
Yes, it's a old building. I think it was built in 1908 or 9. It's an old brick building, very high ceilings, incredible major beams, like floor beams, and they used to make George E. Reach high-end handmade baseball gloves over there.
Get in town.
Yeah.
I think until the early 50s, until the company, or mid-50s, until the company was sold to one of the big boys.
Huh.
Wow.
Interesting.
That is cool stuff.
Yeah.
Now,
the building's got some history.
Now, how many pieces do you get out a month on average?
We're making about 45 to 50 a month right now.
So that's that's very high end.
That's all high end.
Yeah,
coming up on 2 a day.
Yeah, you don't. When those numbers are right there, that is crazy work.
And with a team that big, to put out 2 a day, the attention to detail is just crazy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you got involved with you knew Steve Stevens from back in the Hamer days, but you got involved with him 2-3 years ago now, I think.
No, it was a little different. When I stopped doing Hamer in 1990, it was like right when Kaman bought Hamer. Kaman was a very large company.
Sure.
Located in Connecticut, and they bought Hamer from Paul Hamer, Frank Untermeyer, and Joel Danzig, the original owners, in 1990. And suddenly I had to talk to some corporate suits who had never really touched a guitar, and if they had touched one, they didn't really know what they were talking about. So it was like everything changed from one day to the next after Command bought them, and I pretty immediately stopped working with them and focused fully on PRS, which then rose very fast. At the same time, Hamer kind of went downhill. So when I stopped doing Hamer, Steve also kind of stopped doing Hamer, and I talked to him about a year or two later, at a NAMM show, and Joe made him a PRS with ray gun inlays in the fingerboard that he played for a couple of years. But he wasn't really 100% into it. The scale length wasn't right for him. It was, it was a PRS 25-inch scale, and a few other things he didn't like too much. He did play the guitar. He played at one or two of our parties out at NAMM as well, but he kind of got back with Les Paul. So it was Les Pauls and Super Strats in the 90s when he was like with Vince Neil and did his solo projects before he ultimately got back with Billy. But at some point, I think it was about 3 years ago, it was definitely early 2012, I emailed him and told him what was going on. And so we sent him like 1 or 2 guitars, and he really liked them. But, you know, he wanted a thicker guitar because he was like used to Les Pauls, and he has a very special idea of how much it should weigh. He wants his guitars to be like right around 8.5, 8.6 pounds. So we made him a thicker Kanai with a slightly smaller body. That was the first prototype we made for him in 2012 that he played on the 2012 Billy Idol tour, but only like for 1 or 2 songs. And then that's resulted in the SS1 signature model, 2013, and then ultimately the next evolution is the SS2 that we just released at NAMM 2015, which he's totally in love with.
Right. What's different about the SS2s?
The SS2 has a slightly longer body, just a little longer. It has a better balance that way, because Steve uses very thin straps, and if he takes his hands off the guitar, the SS1 kind of was a little neck heavy. It had a lot to do with the straps he's using, but he just likes the straps he's using. So we made that one, the SS2, a little longer. What else was? Oh, the inlays were different. We used block inlays. Headstocks are all mother of pearl. We went back to regular medium height frets, and he wanted a Tone Pro tunematic bridge. You know, he was going for a more traditional Les Paul sound.
Right.
And that's what we came out doing.
Because the bridge that's typically on your guitars like that is substantially different, I guess, than the Tone Pros. Well,
it's our design. All of our bridges that we use for our guitars are our own designs, and you know having this tunematic bridge and the bridge blade be one piece and being screwed together in the body creates a lot more harmonics than other bridges. So when you have that and you have a very high fret wire, which the SS1 had a higher fret wire, you get a lot of high end. You can turn it down, on the guitar or on the amp, but it produces a lot more harmonics than any other bridge I've ever seen or heard.
Wow.
But as I said, he wanted a more chunkier sound, and so we went for the SS2. We went with the Tone Pro tunematic style bridge.
Right, but I mean that's one of the things I noticed about a couple of the guitars that I had played. A couple of Knaggs over the years. They're very like lively, chimey kind of. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot of content there.
Yeah, you got to get used to them for a little bit, because as I said, there's harmonics and response coming out of these guitars that you don't really get out of other guitars. So when you do get it, you go, wow, hold on a moment, and then you kind of, there is some adjustment to your amp settings that will happen based on just very different sound coming out of the guitars. I also want to say they sound very, very different from PRSs.
Yeah, that's for sure.
They're very, very different guitars. Okay, if anything, maybe the level of finish or looks, is something you can compare. But as far as the guitar itself is concerned, they're very different guitars. They sound different. They have a different feel. They hang different. There's a different neck angle. There's a different headstock angle.
Wow.
They're very, very different guitars from PRS.
Now, what is that angle for the headstock? Because PRS is 4 degrees or?
Not even sure. It's almost non-angle. I think our Knaggs, the influence line guitars, have either 12 or 14 degree.
Okay, that's like
just
a Les Paul.
Just for the headstock angle.
Yeah.
Not really sure what the neck angle is, but it is definitely way steeper than a PRS. It's very close to Les Paul.
Yeah, that 12 degrees would be like a Les Paul.
Yeah, it just nicely wraps around your body.
Yeah.
You know, you get that special look and feel when you look down.
Now, I haven't looked, but do you run a volute on the back of the headstock to prevent, help prevent breakage, or do you?
No.
Okay.
We've never really had a problem.
You probably don't route your truss rod cavity as much as Gibson does, because Gibson, there's
a couple of tricks. There's a couple of tricks to that prevent that from happening, and Joe and Danny know exactly what they're doing on that end.
Good.
Joe's friend Eric Johnson is repairing a lot of Les Pauls with snap-off headstocks, and we were very careful and cautious about that.
Right. Yeah. Well, that cavity, because they use a nut driver.
Right,
for
and it
the
has to
Les
be
Pauls.
routed out enough to get
And
a nut driver
It's
in.
huge. Yeah.
Right.
And when you do a cross section of it, you're like, that's a 16th of wood.
Yeah, we have a double truss rod as well, but it's not a nut. You go in with the Allen wrench.
Yeah,
so
there's a big difference.
The top is much smaller.
Yeah,
right. It makes much more sense.
And Gibson just keeps doing that exact same thing. It must be because they have people in business.
It's so funny. You think that they keep that because it's traditional, in guitars like Les Pauls.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they change everything else about the guitar and don't change the one weak point.
Yeah.
Well,
how does that make sense?
There must be a repair shop.
That's what happens when lawyers and accountants run guitar companies.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you very much. Exactly.
At some point, there's just a lot of things going on that nobody really understands.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because if it breaks, you'll just buy a new one.
Yeah. And no time soon is a Knaggs going to tune itself. Correctly?
No. We feel that tuning a guitar is part of the process.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful thing to do that.
Yeah.
When you put that thing in tune, and I find that whole robot thing not only really ugly visually, but also completely unnecessary. And
okay,
they're getting a lot of bad press about it.
Now I have to ask you.
Well, you know what just happened?
What's that?
Auto-tune just went into the guitar world.
Yes, it did. Now, a question I have, and I know you know this instrument, that Firebird X or Firebird 10 or whatever that atrocity was that they invented. Did you ever get to see that thing? Because I've never seen one, and I wish I could get the actual numbers from Gibson on how many they actually sold to customers.
I've never really actually held one. I think I saw one at a vintage guitar show, but I'm not even sure about that. I haven't really paid too much attention to the whole vintage market. I've been living in it for such a long time. At some point, it just keeps boring me to death. I've seen 66, 67, 69 Tellers and Strats that were so bad that I didn't even want to sell them to anybody, which are now called vintage and, bring several $1,000s, which is completely beyond me. So the whole vintage market and the explosion in the vintage guitar market is something I haven't really paid too much attention to. I'm not an expert neither. To be honest, I don't know what a 66 Les Paul is worth. I couldn't care less, to be honest with you, because they weren't really that good, and I would never have bought one in the first place. So I'm not saying they're bad guitars, or all of them are. All I'm saying is I've never really had a great interest in the so-called vintage guitar market.
Well,
I was more interested in who are the people who will come out with something new, who are the people who can do something that maybe looks at the old designs, maybe adapt something here and there, but do their own thing, make it better, make it sound better, make it feel better, make it look better. That was what I was going for.
Excellent.
Well, that's what the Firebird X was. It was like that robot guitar that could do like 17,000 different sounds. It had amplifiers built into it. They sold for about $6,000. The reason you're looking at me that way, Jeff, is because it literally was this big buildup. It came and it went. and it just disappeared. I mean, it was probably the worst move Gibson has ever done. And I really would just love to know how many they sold because it was just horrible.
That's a great example of just because you can doesn't mean you should.
It's also an example that if you're wearing a suit and you own a guitar company, it doesn't make you a guitar know-it-all.
Right. I mean, you can write them letters, see if you get an answer.
I would love to know because maybe we should try to get
2024.
Yeah. Write them a letter and see how long it takes. Let's write a snail mail letter and see how long it takes. Whatever.
I remember when that thing came out, man, everybody was like, what is that? The forums exploded. They could not believe that they were going that way.
Well, when the Knaggs guitars came out, people went, what is that, in a very different way.
Yes, they did.
So, yeah. And I mean, the first thing that attracted me to it, the first thing that caught my eye was the bridge. It's like, wow, it looks like a grand piano. And it changes.
The other bridge we use for the Chesapeake 7 and the Chop Tank are really, really cool bridges too. Especially the way we use a hinge that connects the bridge pickup plate, which is solidly screwed down into the body, with the floating part, with the trem part, because pretty much everybody uses the old knife edge principle.
It's a fulcrum kind of thing, yeah.
Which is, can be problematic depending on what, if you use softer tone woods, the screws always get loose over time. There's nothing you can do about it. And in our case, it's completely solid. It's a hinge. Nothing moves except the part that's supposed to move. And that increased string vibration, once again, is driven right into the center of the body. And it just produces so much sustain and harmonics that, you have to get used to it first. It really is very different.
This was written up in Premier Guitar.
Yeah.
They were talking about that.
It's been written up pretty much everywhere now. A lot of people are looking at it. And
I mean, it's such a genius idea that I'm sure everybody in the guitar world is going, why didn't I think of that? It's a hinge. Exactly. It's a hinge. Why didn't I think of that?
But that plate also is the bigger thing.
Oh, absolutely.
There's been a couple companies that have done the ball bearing hinge thing. Right? But it's still on two studs. Or it's on multiple studs.
The other thing is...
And they wear out.
Yep. The other thing is our entire bridge is made of solid steel. Okay, so... we pay premium money to have these bridges made.
No cast.
It's absolutely worth it. It kills us on the purchasing end, but it just makes the guitar sound so much better than all the other stuff.
And to let people know what that difference is, if you take a casting, there can be actual gaps inside that casting. Right? You pour liquid metal into a thing and there can be air bubbles.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's solid.
And they could be microscopic, but that can hinder, and do something to the tone or that vibration transferring through. When it's solid steel, it's solid steel. There's no working around that. There's a very difference in price, though. Castings are cheap. Steel is very expensive.
Well, castings are cheap after the mold.
But then they print out 50,000 for cents, when you got to stamp each one, or cut it some way, laser or whatever, that's expensive, and that's the only way steel can be done.
Right. Have you ever, Mick, played a Knaggs?
I have never played a Knaggs. I've only seen them. The first time I saw them, I was immediately, without knowing that there was this connection between the guy that worked at PRS and this guitar, I was like, that has that look and feel of, just the visual of like a PRS, but it was like, well, no, it's got 6 on the side.
No, it's way different.
And I'm like, this guitar is just so unique.
Well, the single cut has, a similarity, but I think that's pretty much where the similarity ends in the entire line of Knaggs guitars.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like, that thing looks like some kind of souped up Strat.
The single cut,
the other ones.
Yes,
yeah, well, the single cut was also designed by Joe, okay?
Yes.
Initially, his design was actually way closer to a Knaggs shape, if you look at it from the top, than what the single cut ended up being. It had that little bit more extended horn, the upper bout, but the final guitar, the final single cut that Joe drew and designed ended up being what it is. So I think the Knaggs looks a little different. It looks also very different if you look at it from the side or from the back.
Yeah.
Because of the contouring and which to a degree was done to reduce weight, because the guitar is also a little bigger than a Les Paul or a PRS single cut, which was also purposefully a design factor, simply because kids are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and if you put if you put a PRS around somebody who's 6'5", it looks really funny.
Ted Nugent, he looks hilarious.
It's the same thing if you put a 335 on me at 5'9", I look funny. So the size of the guitar and the size of the player actually matters, because as kids are growing bigger, the so-called old guitars that were a little smaller are probably going to be too small in 5 years.
Now, see, there's a design aspect that you wouldn't think as being considered in the design of a guitar. Like, what does it look like on a particular sized person?
Just airline seats.
Yeah, the airline.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure if everybody thought about it, but that was something that was really important to me.
No, I think that's
remember talking to Joe
unique.
about that very early on, and maybe he would have never thought about it if I hadn't brought it up, but he totally agreed with me, and he had originally planned to make the single cutaway influence line guitar we were going to design as our first, influence line guitar, to make that a little bigger in general. So we were kind of on the same page without really talking about it until we got to it.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's a very unique thought process that
it is.
One wouldn't think a lot of people would be thinking about. So that, I mean, again, that's just another part of their originality.
Johnny Hyland should have went there.
Well, true.
Well, I was more talking about height.
I'm just kidding. It was
not so much about width. Johnny's he's a good man.
He's an insane player.
It would be good if he would stop eating, though.
You think?
He's in danger, seriously. He's
he's
so young still. It's like, he's
very large man.
Yeah,
he's 35 or something.
Yeah. He's a nice guy and a fantastic player, but one would think that he would think about being with us a little bit longer, And
yes, let's hope for the best.
Let's hope for the best. That's
yes,
right.
Sir.
That's right. Well, speaking of hoping for the best, I mean, we could probably go on for another hour, but Peter, I am hoping for the best for you and Knaggs Guitars, man. It's really, you've really made a mark in a relatively short amount of time, and I just keep it. I hope it keeps growing exponentially for you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And one last thing.
I just want to say one thing that, it may have looked like a piece of cake from the outside, but it has been an intense struggle in the last 5 years on any possible level. And I'm sort of proud that we were able to take it where we've taken it.
Cool.
But I'm telling you, man, in the time we started the company, it was not a good time to start a company. And I'm very grateful that we had a lot of people who supported us and were rooting for us. So maybe that's one way of also putting a thank you out to them. They know who they are, and it was intense, but we've gotten where we've gotten.
That's very cool.
That's I mean, I don't know that anybody thinks that starting a business is easy, and I certainly wouldn't have expected it to be a cakewalk for you guys, even though you came from a wealth of knowledge
Yeah, we had a couple of accolades, yes.
Yeah.
You know, some experience, knew a lot of people, know a lot of people, all that is correct. But, you know, when you start a business, the biggest issue is cash.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was really hard to do all that without cash. It would have been easy had we had $1 million. Oh, it would have been a piece of cake. But we didn't. So we had to basically make up for it and in other ways. And that was very hard, but also at the same time very rewarding.
Yeah.
Hats off to you guys.
That
man.
delayed
Hats
gratification always has a big reward on the other end.
It does. It does. And, you know, a lot of kids today don't know what that term means.
Exactly.
You know,
but
and
I do have to say this.
Okay.
Coolest accent of any guest we've ever had, bar none.
I've spoken to Peter before. I have spoken.
Thank you.
I just wanted to mention Brand Wolf. That's you know, that's your company. You still have that. And
yes.
Do you do anything outside of Knaggs at this point? And you know, or if you want to expound before we go on what Brand Wolf is and what it is and what you do.
It was basically when I first left PRS, I thought about what I was going to do, and you know, kind of went back to my roots and thought, well, you've been finding and promoting talented people for 2 or 3 decades, and you've never really been paid for it. You've helped so many companies become bigger and successful that, you know, just by connecting them or by putting them in touch with potential customers or people who were able to take it to the next level. And perhaps you should focus on that and continue to find talent and brands that are small that need to be seen by the rest of the world. So that's where how Brand Wolf started. And I did that. I helped Fuchs audio designs, Fuchs amps for like 2 years, and I'm working now also with J Rocket audio design pedals in Nashville, who are really cool, really nice company, all made in the US, top-notch pedals. But I just don't have that much time to devote to do that, because I'm 98% of my time is Knaggs. So
sure,
unless it's really lucrative and pays off financially to help somebody else and do some consulting work, which I actually truly love. I really appreciate it and I like it. It's just that my day only has 24 hours, you know, as everyone's, and I'm already squeezing it to the max. So, but we'll see, you know.
Yeah, I just wanted to put that out there in case, you know, there was something that you wanted the people to know about Brand Wolf and, you know, what it did or what it continued to do, or obviously.
Yeah, it's pretty much all on my website, brandwolf.net. If you go to services, it kind of explanatory, and you get the idea. And there's references up there and all kinds of things. So if anyone's interested in checking it out, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll have that up on our site.
We'll put that up, you know, along with the Knaggs
absolutely
website for sure.
We'll link everything out there like we always do.
Yeah.
Stay out there for
perpetuity.
Very good.
Thank you. That's right. Well, Peter, again, thank you for taking the time. I know you guys are busy, and I couldn't be happier for you. And I know
appreciate it.
It's been a long, hard road to get where you are, and congratulations and much continued success, my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Peter. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of the day.
You guys too. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Well, there you have the story.
Hey, how about that?
How about that? That's
that is something cool stuff, man. I didn't realize this when he was saying the numbers. In 2009, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was probably the worst time to start anything.
Oh, yeah.
2008 was...
The bottom had just fallen out of everything.
Yeah. Everybody was like ready to jump off a roof, and they were starting a high-end guitar company, but that whole perseverance thing, man, you see where they are.
That just... you know, I'm sure that, I mean, it's never easy to start with, but I'm sure that exponentially compounded the difficulty that they must have had starting this, man. And that's, you know, that so much credit goes out to Joe and to Peter to just go. I gotta do something else. I've got to. I have to follow my calling. And it's not while they were doing what they were doing. It really wasn't as fulfilling, I guess, as it should have been for them. And to take that next step, because you're already doing what you're doing, and you're doing the thing that you like to do, or you felt you were put here to do, or you're very good at, or you've developed into over the years, however you look at that scenario, to leave the comfort of that, to get to the next level of satisfaction and success, man, that takes, I believe the term is muy grande gallones. Brass ones, man. It really does.
That's a leap of faith right there, man. Because
yes, it is.
You gotta. I mean, now granted, I pulled up the page here, and we can take a look at these as they scroll by. These are amazing instruments. They offer.
They're beautiful.
I mean, you can. And when I said that, I see that PRS thing coming out a little bit. It's obviously because of Joe's designs. He was behind.
Well, like Peter said, Joe was responsible for the single cut.
Exactly. But, what I see here, too, are things that you're not going to get on a PRS without paying really high dollar money. Binding around the bodies, binding around the necks. It's like binding around a wood pickguard. It's very unique. It's very... It's
the details that are
the details are insane, but what I'm trying to say is they haven't reinvented the wheel, right? It has a very traditional look. It's not space age. It's not, they haven't tried to
see, but I think that's right. It's not a Parker Fly, and I think that it's very much responsible for their success. It's somewhat traditional looking, which that's a huge comfort factor for people.
Absolutely.
Yet it has such unique qualities to it.
Yeah. And it's innovative.
Right.
Like you look at that bridge and you look at like how they do some binding things, like on that pickguard right there. First it's a wooden pickguard, and there's this inlay that runs around the pickguard.
Right.
That's a 1/4 inch off of the edge. That is painstaking. That is not simple stuff. And, you see these bindings, and then, of course, the inlays inside on the fretwork, or on the fretboard, I should say. This is stuff that takes a lot of man hours. Now, they do have a CNC machine, which will help those man hours when it comes to putting inlays on a fingerboard that have, but you still, there's got to be that person that has to take those pieces, because it's not just a single piece here. This looks like very multiple piece type stuff.
Right.
And the book matching is just, the flame is just insane. Like when you lower your numbers, Ed Roman, we were talking about Ed Roman with Mark Kendall.
Yes.
Ed told me this. He says, when you take your numbers of your guitars and you go from Fender's numbers, which is like 300 a day, some kind of crazy number. And he goes, and they have a custom shop in the back. He goes, the custom shop guys, they get to pick and choose, and they get to do some very unique things. He goes, but when you go to that next set down, which is a very expensive guitar, the quality falls out. You don't get that crazy flame that you see here with the book matching and stuff. And he says, this is how corporate companies are. Gibson's the same way.
And look, there's room for those guitars, because
there's room for them. But what I'm saying is that when you have low numbers like these guys, where they're doing $60 a month, that wood is so handpicked. That is basically a private stock guitar,
right?
That would cost you, a
good
amount of money,
right?
And you'd be,
but it's worth it.
Absolutely,
it's worth it. They are not inexpensive guitars by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
They are high end guitars,
and
but they're extremely worth it.
And your custom options on these, well, it seems like they're endless. If they're going to give a guy a guitar that they make with multiple pickups, and they only give him one pickup and a volume, that supersedes most of the companies out there, because most of the companies will not deviate from their standard look. You know, like it's very difficult to have a company go outside of their borders, because, you know, do they want a Les Paul going out there with just a neck pickup and one volume? You know,
True.
that kind of thing. Does,
True. And you know,
things.
I don't know that particular design would have you know, enough response from the public to warrant putting that into a production type of piece. But probably not, you know. But
you know, when it comes to the suits and everybody at places like that, especially corporate places, they don't want, you know, do they want that piece out there?
Right, because it deviates too much from the norm.
Exactly. And then, whoa, what is that?
Right.
You know, like, well, did they mess up? You know, it's that thing. But see, when it's a small company like this, they only have to answer to themselves.
Sure.
You know, so Joe and Peter, they can go, yeah, give it to him. He's a loyal customer. Absolutely. We'll do that for him. That's cool. Yeah. Because you don't see much of that anymore, you know, and
right.
Yeah, that's a dying thing, man.
It totally is. And, you know, Jimmy Davies, Jimmy Ha has been around for a long time. And, you know, he's had a relatively decent amount of success in his life, and you know, he kind of over time, you know, morphed into this "I just want the neck pickup" kind of thing. And you know, for those guys to go, yeah, well, we don't normally do this, and I don't know if they would have done it for anyone.
Probably not.
Yeah, but you know,
well, then again, you never know.
But Jimmy, you know, Jimmy is. Jimmy's had enough success where he warranted that piece from Knaggs, and you know, that they were willing to do it. It just, you know, it speaks volumes about them. So
yeah,
you know, I don't know if we'll see it in production, but it's a cool thing.
Yeah, and you know, we've been fortunate. We've had Jason Schroeder, who is a top builder. We've had Kevin Brubaker, without a doubt, top builder, and now we have these guys, and it's really neat to see these smaller shops that can do this kind of thing that the bigger shops don't really do, unless you're going to deep dig and, you know, way down in that pocket, man. You know, and it's cool.
You know, the Knaggs organization is a bit larger than I thought it was at this point, and you know, congratulations and God bless.
11 guys.
Did he say 11 or 15?
I mean,
something around there.
Anywhere,
you know,
it's Baker's dozen.
It's not 2 or 3. You know,
no, it's
and
not.
It's like, wow, that's. I'm very, very happy for them.
Yeah.
And you know, while the organization has gotten bigger, it's only gotten bigger to be able to fulfill the orders and to maintain the quality that needs to be maintained in a guitar in this range, you know. So it's not like they're getting too big for their britches and they're going to start pumping out Fender numbers or PRS numbers or anything.
No.
You know, I don't see that at any time in the very near future, and that's a really nice thing.
And they're works of art.
And they are. That's it's a really nice thing. So you know, they're growing just big enough.
Yes.
To do what they need to do and still keep the impeccable quality up. And
one last story.
Okay.
Real quick.
Okay.
One time we were having dinner. This was me and you.
Okay.
And I think I asked you a question, and you told me that the difference between a company that makes you. We were talking about your amp company, and you said that the difference between a company where you're building them in your shop that you had, and you had like 15 chassis sitting out. You said to me, when the numbers are here, and you know you're making your 10, 11 at a clip. You know, and I don't know how long it takes to get 10 or 11 out the door. But to go from there to the numbers that like a Marshall or a Fender's making, you said that curve is so rapid that you really can't live in the middle. You kind of got to be at the bottom or you got to be all the way at the top.
Right. It's a very, very hard transition. And, you know, people in the business world, I do not remember the name of this particular curve, but people in the business world know what it is. And it's comfortable at the bottom, if you're only expecting this much out of the company and this much out of life or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, when you get to the top of this bell curve, it's good there too. It's very, very successful there too. But the transition is unbelievably hard.
Yeah.
It's unbelievably hard.
Until next time, my friend.
Damn right there is.
I'm Mick Marcelino, and you...
Knew it when I came in.
Should we do a drum roll?
Jeff Bober.
Yes. We are saying...
Onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @AmpsandAxes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage ampsandaxescast.com. Thanks for listening.